working in technology, you can build the most elegant, badass piece of technology ever, but if the people and market aren't ready for it, you can't force feed it. So what's interesting here is people are gravitating to BRC-20s. It's mimetic, there's culture there, there's conversation. What I'm seeing is a way to keep that going, because if more technology get built on BRC-20s, it's going to go to zero, and it's going to be another fad. But if we get a way to build economics around it, liquidity, so people can balance out and then level it up again, that's what I'm really excited about.
What a wild 3 days it's been so far, gentlemen. My name is Jake Gallen, and we're here with Omnisat, which is going to be a new protocol for BRC-20 for DeFi. We'll go into some of the details later. But to give you just a brief explanation, you're like, why are a bunch of guys just sitting on a couch? Like, what a weird kind of thing to do as you're crisscrossed. And it's because we got this house because we believe in this idea of BRC-20 and DeFi on Bitcoin on the L1 layer through Ordinals and through this BRC-20 experiment, at least at this point in time. And we're building a new protocol. We've really just geared down over the last 3 days, used our expertise of the variety of things that we do, from dev work to Twitter to content creation to ideation and so forth, combined all of our skill set, and we're now putting out Omnisat. But before we do dive into that, we're going to introduce all of us, and then we're going to talk a little bit about BRC-20. And then we'll end with some details that I think all of you should pay attention to. So again, my name is Jake. I work over at Emblem Vault, which is a blockchain tool that allows people to trade NFTs and digital assets across any blockchain in a variety of ways. I'll keep it at that. I have a podcast. I've been in this space since 2016. And I'm more than excited to be out here to finally be building things and not just trading shitcoins for a living, right? It's a little bit different on this side. I'm going to introduce H, and then we're going to go down the line, and we'll dive into BRC-20s after that.
Incredible. I'm H Wonder of the World. I'm a product engineer. I help ship products, help build teams, and get incredible things into the market.
That leaves me, Bunzi. I'm a front-end developer and work for Pineapple, and we've helped build several products in the Web3 space in particular. And yeah, I also have a podcast. I'm a shit poster, and I love Web3.
And now he has 10,000 followers, too. Now he's officially an influencer.
Yeah, I'm about to start selling supplements, so hit me up.
Yeah, and my name is Matt, founder of Pineapple Workshop. We're a Web3-centric shop, tight-knit group of individuals that like building for the future. And yeah, we just basically spent last 2 or 3 days just figuring out how to build this thing and innovate into the next level of stuff. So
yeah, it's been a lot of fun, too. And there's some others wandering around the house. They didn't want to be on screen, so it's not just us four. There's actually like a decent amount of people here, really building, like Ken said, from all walks of life, from crypto and from the traditional world as well. But just as a brief, if people don't know what Ordinals is, it's a meta protocol that's built on top of Bitcoin. I had to make sure I got meta protocol right. All the terminology is all changing so fast. I started in December, really took off in January. It allows you to put up to 4 megabytes of data inside each ordinal, effectively turning it into an NFT of sorts. And then recently, Domo put out a proposal in March about BRC-20, which is kind of the idea of ERC-20 with fungible tokens. And since then, Ordinals has just exploded. I think they just crossed 6 million inscriptions, and over 5 million of them are from BRC-20. So there's a lot of interest. The market cap, I believe, is 1.7 billion on the time of this recording on Mother's Day. And so you can see there's a lot of enthusiasm around it. But more so for us, we're looking a little bit deeper past that layer, that original layer, and saying, what can you do with fungible tokens? And so if you start exploring the ideas of blockchains that have fungible tokens on them or on the layer 2 level, you start seeing things like stable coins and DeFi and all of these cool financial tools and instruments that pop up. And so for us, this was like our aha moment. We are seeing a lot of teams introduce different types of proposals for things like staking contracts and LPs and things like that. But for Omnisat, right, we're going to be introducing this idea of BAM, which we will get back to that in a second. We're going to keep you waiting a little bit more. But we'll start with like Buns. What's your opinion on ordinals and BRC-20? What gets you enthusiastic about building on Bitcoin and not just Ethereum?
Yeah, I think the concept alone of just a new technology coming out on the legacy chain, Bitcoin, was the most interesting part. You know, we have Ethereum, we have a lot of compatibility there and a whole bunch of other chains, but with collectibles on ordinals, it kind of gave me the feeling of like collecting something inscribed on marble rather than like plastic on, say, something like Solana. And like, I know that's a strange parallel, but for digital collectibles, that's kind of what started that movement originally. And that's what I was seeing. Like, people were collecting sub 10,000 and these interesting things that only the collector mindset would resonate with. And as an artist and someone that does collect art, I like the idea of it. And there's several other thresholds that make it interesting. You can't just make one contract with 10,000 tokens. You have to inscribe each one, which heightens the level of conviction that whoever's inscribing it. So I like that, where you just can't release a lot of projects out in there and see what happens. You have to inscribe each one. It's pay to play. So I really like that part. But that was caught my attention early. I believe you were posting about it as well. And I watched all the way from I forget the punks, but not the Bitcoin punks, but the ones before that. From that all the way on, and I was just trying to tell everyone I knew, and they're like, dude, you can do so much more over here. But now we have BRC-20s, and it's just an interesting thing to look at. And when something causes arguments, I like to get involved. So since then, I've just been heads down, just trying to figure out what happens or what's going to happen. And I talked to H about it, and he's like, dude, what is this? But by the end of 3 minutes, he's like, come out to Vegas, let's build it. So here we are.
It all makes sense, right? It all makes sense. So Bitcoin Punks was the first one to implement that idea of a decentralized mint, which to me is one of my favorite mechanics that's come out of it, where it's different on Ethereum, where you have like, let's just say a 10K PFP drop, and you can just have this like generative randomly assigned a minting procedure, but it can be gamed. Here, it's like a free-for-all. They have the method of first is first. So if you're first to inscribe something, then you know that's yours. And it's kind of a little bit of a socially constrained, or it's a socially implemented method that's socially enforced. But it becomes more decentralized, and that's the ethos of Bitcoin. We recognize the simplicity is what is pertinent on this oldest blockchain of Bitcoin, created by Satoshi, the most decentralized. It's one of the remaining proof of work chains, but also the largest blockchain in the industry as well. But the decentralized mint isn't I would say the largest experiment that's happened through ordinals yet. Obviously, BRC-20 is kind of why we're here. But for H, as kind of like the chief architect, and I like to say the brilliant one here in the room, you've built NFT projects, you've built games, you've been in a dev for a long, long time. What catches your attention about ordinals, BRC-20, and building, maybe we'll just call it like a meta protocol on top of Bitcoin?
I think the piece that I find the most magical about all of this is that you need to be a really proficient engineer to understand how to maintain the simplicity of Bitcoin while enabling primitives that people are familiar with in decentralized finance on the Ethereum side and all the other EVM compatible chain sides. So this notion that you can take the simplicity and produce elegant code base that allows people to participate in lending products, participate in bond mechanisms, participate in swap mechanisms, unlocks so many more opportunities for the BRC-20 enabled meme coins.
It's tough because everyone is just always using different terminology because there's really no standard, right? So depending on who's using what indexer, who's building what team, what background are they coming from. Right now, most builders in the ordinal space is either from Ethereum, Stacks, or BSV, it seems, right? Each kind of have a natural fit in there. And so if you're migrating from a different blockchain, then obviously you have your own terminology that's pertinent to that, and start seeing some of those fragments starting to pop up a little bit. Matt, we just first got to meet this weekend as the co-founder of Pineapple Workshop and is experienced in all kinds of different dev work. What captures your attention about Ordinals or BRC-20? I know it's fairly new to you, as I was watching you just deploy your own testnet to kind of build on this as a gigabrain. What, from your immediate participation, what captures your attention?
The primitiveness of the technology creates a barrier of entry, right? With Ethereum, you want to test out ERC-721, all the tooling's there. OpenSea testnets is there. It's easy to go full circle, go full loop on a solution, right? You know, where in this world, you go look up, you're kind of reading through GitHub code to understand what's going on, and then there's not really one Medium article you can read and says, oh, okay, now I get it. So stepping through that yesterday was really exciting, and once it clicked and seeing like the inscriptions and the transformation of state across time via just writing simple data chain was fascinating to me, you know. So, you know, as the ecosystem grows, the tooling will be there, but I think it's a unique time to be learning this stuff and to be trying to solve maybe previous problems or new problems via these mechanisms. So
there's a lot of problems. I believe last night you had found a problem or a bug that you're going to introduce into the Ord wallet, or introduce into the system to be improved. To fix
the bug, yeah. Right? Not the bug itself.
Yeah.
But it just shows how early we could potentially be and how much growth, the growth potential. So.
It just kind of leads to this idea. I believe we called it like a runway when we were discussing it yesterday. We've noticed with the Ordinals ecosystem is that when somebody introduces a proposal or an idea, people just start building around it, right? It's almost like kind of flying the plane or you're building the plane as it's flying, right? Almost similar to like Ethereum's transition to proof of stake as a proof of work. I know I talked with Domo, who created the BRC-20 standard with proposal, and he thought of it all just as an experiment. It'd all be worthless. Turns out 2 months later, it's worth almost $2 billion in total in market cap. So we kind of have a very similar philosophy with what we're about to talk next and what we've been kind of scheming with Omnisat, introducing BAM proposal, and the protocol follow. There's going to be documentations that are linked either on Twitter or on the website or on YouTube, wherever that you're watching this. So I highly recommend to go look into that. But I'll let H kind of explain a little bit of what BAM is, just the basic idea, what does BAM stand for, and what solution what problem are we fixing with the solution?
So BAM stands for Bitcoin-backed automated market maker. Very similar to the automated market making formula that Vitalik originally created, that was implemented in Uniswap, Sushi, and every other swap that exists since. In that model, you have a token that is backed by some written value, collateralized typically on an Ethereum side, collateralized with WETH.
With WETH, yep.
In the Bitcoin side, there isn't a collateral to Bitcoin. So what we've done is we've created a BRC-20 compatible Bitcoin that gives Bitcoin the peripherals that BRC-20 tokens have, with the collateralized Bitcoin in a vault to back that BRC-20 compatible token.
Yeah, and for this example, just to make sure I understand this correctly, if there's ETH and WETH, right? WETH is the tokenized version of ETH. For this, you have Bitcoin, BTC, and then the BRC-20 equivalent, and the name we're going to use for right now would be BTC-20.
Correct.
Is that the right type of explanation?
Correct. So when we think about Ethereum, Ethereum is the native token to Ethereum's mainnet. The ERC-20 tokens that are used in AMM pools and used for all of these really cool functions have very special peripherals on them. The Ethereum doesn't have that, so they created the wrapped ETH protocol so that you could wrap that ETH and enable those peripherals, thus making it compatible with the functionality of swaps and other tools that exist. So we've replicated that functionality natively on Bitcoin. If
this idea of whether you want to call it Bitcoin, DeFi, Ordinal DeFi, BRC-20 DeFi, right? It's still just like largely undetermined what the specific name is. Why would you want a liquidity pool and something like atomic swaps, which people have been trying to solve for, we'll say 13, 14 plus years at this point, and is still in a limited fashion? How does BAM and Omnisat solve this? Or like, why is it important?
Well, it's important because people want to not rely on market makers to create book depth in an order book. If there is an adequate amount of buyers or sellers, you end up with a void in the market and people stop paying attention. When you have all this momentum, if you're able to take the magic of the AMM and put Bitcoin behind it, you unlock that liquidity for these tokens and create a market that could exist 24/7, 365. That was that was a catalyst to the DeFi run on Ethereum mainnet in 2020. So this is one of those very unique opportunities where the attention's there. People care about it. They're building tooling around it. And the headwinds of that just make it make sense. So yeah, that's why we're really building this out.
When you look at DeFi on Ethereum, I believe it's $20 to $50 billion market cap. Could be more. TVL, I know, is kind of in that range as well. It's gone through its own, turmoils and ups and downs. But now you're thinking Bitcoin, which is double the size or 2.5 times the size of Ethereum. It's the probability or the potential to outpace Ethereum DeFi is there. Of course, it's a little bit of a simplistic nature, and we do understand that as those who are devout members of the Bitcoin NFT community have a high preference for decentralization. They want simplicity. And we know that there's certain things that they find distasteful, and so we really try to follow that as well, right, in a trustless manner, which we'll talk a little bit more about the mechanics, but kind of the design, right, of Omnisat that you guys can see on screen when you enter the website. Buns, like, what type of reasoning or design went into Omnisat? Just thinking about the idea of like what it should feel like as a native Bitcoin user entering something that's as specific as Bitcoin DeFi.
Yeah, I think as we all were working and we got this house, we sat down, spun up a few UIs, and they just didn't feel quite right, because right now interacting with BRC-20s is quite archaic, but that's kind of what makes us like it right now. It's technical people in a technical atmosphere, and Bitcoin, if it's hard money, that's why DeFi works in my head. That's how I make it make sense. Is Ethereum is an EVM and DeFi just made sense, but Bitcoin is hard money. Decentralized finance is its natural next step. So when we were going through the UI and stuff, just really try to simplify it and turn it almost into a terminal of like, when you're deploying a node or inscribing something without an inscriber bot, like what that feels like. And so yeah, really wanted to embrace that and keep everything really lightweight and as fast as possible. And yeah, we just been enjoying the process. And so what you're seeing is, yeah, for the hackers and the cypherpunks and people that enjoy this culture, we're all a part of it. So we know what that feels like. We're not fabricating something. It's or someone's telling us like, we've been doing this for quite a while, so I think we're just making stuff we like as well. So I think that's a cool part about it.
And Matt, as we sat and looked at this TV screen with all the different PowerPoints and understanding some of the nuanced mechanics to it, right? Building an indexer and a screener and all these different things. How do you feel? How comfortable do you feel about building that? And do you feel that that's the right implementation for Omnisat and the direction of Bitcoin DeFi?
Yeah, I mean, I was thoroughly impressed by how fast H came up with a working proof of concept. And in this world, I don't know if there's like a bunch of different options for us. Principally, there's some methodologies and techniques that we have to kind of abide by that might not be as efficient as other places. So that was interesting learning that. I'm just being a sponge, soaking up a lot of H's knowledge and seeing where I best fit. At this point, I'm really focusing on this execution layer and putting binaries and scribing binaries and facilitating some of those mechanics that I haven't really thought through before. So.
Yeah, it's a whole brand new world. H, dive a little bit into the vaulting mechanism, as we believe this might be the most pivotal component of this outside of the swaps, of bringing liquidity into this swapping world, right? We're taking a Bitcoin and swapping it for BT20. So at this point of recording, you're bringing in about $30,000 per Bitcoin coming into the vault. But we understand it had to be made in a trustless manner. As we know, this has kind of been a hung up position for a bunch of protocols, and this is why they moved to something like a bridge or something like an L2. And this is where you see things like SBTC or OBTC or whatever BTC. We're doing something a little bit different. So can you kind of explain the technicals of how that works?
Certainly. So we've created a system where you produce bond instructions. You produce instructions that include the minimum amount and maximum amount of Bitcoin that can be deposited in that vault, and for how long, and what the approximate yield would be. That extrapolates several different time lock addresses. And each of these time lock addresses work as multi-sigs, that when the instructions for redemption are passed and signed, the Bitcoin that is in those vaults can be released to the individuals who have the BTC familiar. So it uses the same pattern as a burn mint, or what we call coat check. If I go to the restaurant and I leave my coat at the front desk, they give me a ticket. If I happen to give that ticket to a random stranger, and for whatever reason inside the venue, and they take that ticket back, they could redeem the underlying coat. So we're using that same framework, but through inscriptions to validate these events that are being captured in the index mechanisms of the BRC-20 protocol. And
so for the first attempt, or when we launch this, we're just use an arbitrary number of 100 Bitcoin. So you fill this vault up with 100 Bitcoin from 100 different participants who can now go use this BTC20 in the swap. And so when we move over now to the swapping component, you've now bridged over essentially 100 Bitcoin in value, which would be what? 100 Bitcoin is about $2 million, $3 million, or maybe it's $20 million. I forget the specific number. Excuse me, I'm bad at math. But you can now take the BTC20, and for the initial pairs that are listed, I'm just going to use Ordi for example. So number one, you could take BTC20, and if you have one, you can now go swap essentially one Bitcoin equivalent for Ordi that exists. And then after the time lock is released, we'll say 90 days for anyone who's put Bitcoin into this vault. After 90 days, however much, wherever that BTC20 is, that's accounted for on the back end, can go be redeemed for Bitcoin, or you can choose to keep it a little bit longer. Jared, what type of tokens are we going to see initially for the swapping mechanism? And if you'd like, just simply explain what this is and what it's comparable to.
Yeah, so for the tokens, we really want to lean into the ones that are being heavily traded, because these are going to be liquidity-backed tokens, so therefore Omni, meme token. And on that point, a lot of these, what's interesting about this, these are all more speculative than any other token right now, that if you ask me, they're meme tokens. But when you start to reinforce and build some of these primitives and protocols on the back of them, and this is going to make them into something very special, because now there's a baseline layer. You can pull out liquidity. You can trade them anytime you want. You can leave, grab your coat whenever, rather than if no one's buying the floor, there's not a liquid floor. This is now just a gift card, inscribed on an Ordinal's protocol. So yeah, to the tokens, probably the top 10 that are moving the most, because we want to, back those and allow them to participate in a DeFi protocol, because if people are trading, the next step is DeFi. And Yeah, I think also ones with funny names. So
Right. So if you go on Uniswap right now, you could take Pepe token if you hold Pepe, and you could go swap it for ETH or WETH, or you could go swap it for the Aave token back and forth with the amount of liquidity that exists in those pools. So for here, if Bunzi he created the Mullet token, I created the Jake token, we could go create that pair in an LP. I'll go put up 50,000 Jake tokens and 50,000 Mullet tokens, right? I'll be a Mullet thousandaire, and put that in the LP, and now people can go use those tokens to go swap against things that aren't even just Mullet and Jake. So if I wanted to go take Jake and go swap it for meme, then you can go ahead and do that in the protocol. And a lot of that liquidity exists also because of BTC20 itself. Matt, can you tell us a little bit about just some more of the back end of how does all this kind of work? Are you using standard JSON files? Is the indexer reading a certain type of code? Is there smart contracts involved? From the expertise and from you being a hacker over in the corner for the last 12 to 48 hours, what's going on over there?
There's a lot of subsystems to accomplish what you could probably accomplish on one Ethereum smart contract, as far as the vault and the familiar asset and all that. And unpacking that and understanding the importance of each subsystems. And in the documentation, H put something like the points of potential failure, or and all that is something to really take seriously. And as he's when you have Occam's razor, simpler is better. The simplest solution is still pretty dang complex, and conceptually the terminology, focusing on not using ETH terminology and all that, we're painting canvas, and that's what's beautiful about new tech, is that's the most fun part about it, instead of just tweaking something and calling it new. So at the higher level, I still personally have thinking to do on this whole inscribed binary execution with determinism and all that, and it kind of gives you a little bit too much jargon there regarding that, but that also kind of bridges my point a little bit, so.
Yeah, make sure you guys read the documents. It's pretty straightforward. We'll be excited to release a lot of it. This will provide a lot of liquidity, but also some ease of use. You won't have to go to a central exchange to go trade. You can simply just use this for here, and it's going to roll out in stages, as all of this is really new. And we want this DEX, or BAM and DEX, to be complementary to the rest of the other DeFi protocols that exist. It's not a winner-take-all situation. It's growing the pie. As we looked at how DeFi evolved in Ethereum, it began with MakerDAO and Compound and Aave and Uniswap. But now you see a plethora of similar protocols that exist in the ecosystem, and they're all doing really well, right? You have Uniswap, you have Sushi, you have 1inch, right? You have Compound, you have Aave, and just list goes down and down and on and on. And so we hope the same is here, is that this protocol encourages others, to create either something similar or complementary, or to even come work with us to see how we could all kind of work together. And the reason why we put this video together is to show that we're serious. It's we're a doxed team, right? A group of friends who are all builders from a variety of degrees in the space. Most of the other teams are all anonymous, and that's not a bad thing, but it's to show that we're willing to work with other individuals in this space, other teams, to show that we're very serious, and we do believe that this BRC-20 and Bitcoin DeFi is just going to be a very massive industry. And we're literally on the ground floor. Well, I'm on the couch, but you guys are on the ground floor within itself. So I hope that everybody who tuned into this said, listen, there's a lot more to go, but I'll leave H with some closing words. As kind of the chief architect, one of the most brilliant guys that I know. Just tell us your overall thoughts on just BRC-20 and BAM and building something that can have a huge impact on Bitcoin in general.
So we resolved, when we first started talking about this, we were talking about, you mentioned specifically how barbaric the process was. There's tons of race conditions, there's tons of things that could go wrong and do go wrong for a lot of people. And if you factor Bitcoin, large amounts of Bitcoin into that, it would be a disaster. And just stuck on this idea of why does barbaric, we went and Googled and we looked up, barbaric imagery on Google and seen all these crazy pictures of like Conan and blood, and it was over the top. And how can we make this approachable and fun? A lot of people that participated in the DeFi summer of 2020, a lot of those individuals didn't necessarily know how to lean into that wavelength. A lot of people got wrecked. And with that intuitive knowledge and the discussions we were having about how to not make this feel negatively barbaric, we pulled up the Flintstones. And the name Bam Bam came from the Flintstones and this idea of vaulted deep liquidity, which is core to protocol success. Having protocol owned liquidity that isn't at the mercy of LP providers who are simply trying to chase the next yield opportunity, made this kind of metaphor all make sense. If we have this bedrock of vaulted liquidity and we have this mechanism that can break this trustlessly and permissionlessly break up this liquidity from this bedrock and issue rewards, pebbles, to participants who are helping provide liquidity using the ecosystem, we can make this thing very digestible and approachable and understandable for people. Not, this looks like it's going to be a big thing, let me throw all my money at it. Instead, wow, I actually understand what I'm doing. I'm not putting my Bitcoin at risk or my BRC-20 tokens at risk. Because I can understand it, I can see where I can participate and add value, or participate and find the value that I want from my swaps or whatever which way I'm utilizing this protocol. So I think just staying with that as core values, making sure that we maintain the spec of BRC-20 and its compatibility, making sure that we're always operating as transparent as possible, hence the video. I think just having those core values is a guiding light, and I think what we're doing is incredible. I mean, yeah.
I'm excited. I know we're all excited. Bunzy's heading off to Bitcoin Miami. Leave us on some final words. What do you think is going to happen down there?
Oh, Bitcoin Miami is going to be fun. I think we're going to have two camps of Bitcoin maxis, block size talk, and all that. But just to kind of round off this conversation, working in technology, you can build the most elegant, badass piece of technology ever, but if the people and market aren't ready for it, you can't force feed it. So what's interesting here is people are gravitating to BRC-20s. It's mimetic, there's culture there's conversation, and what I'm seeing is a way to keep that going, because if more technologies get built on BRC-20s, it's going to go to zero, and it's going to be another fad. But if we get a way to build economics around it, liquidity, so people can, balance out and then level it up again. That's what I'm really excited about. It's like kind of just trying to step in with past experience, seeing what happened in DeFi summer and why that helped ETH do what it did. And then what NFTs, so that's what gets me excited, is the culture behind it is super mimetic, which I fall for every time because I love shit posting, but it's real users, real people, and not just, a bunch of wash trading. There's a lot of people involved in BRC-20s right now, a lot of excitement, and I just want to help with the team build a foundation layer to continue this movement, because I've been having a really good time trading these things and learning about them and kind of taking 5 steps back and going all the way back to JSON, just inscribing it. And I think I'm really excited just to get this out there and be a part of the conversation while it's happening.
Question's always been, what can I do with my BRC-20s? That's something I've been asking since I created Jake like 2 weeks ago. Still not much to do, but hopefully here in the future, we'll be able to swap, we'll be able to borrow and lend, we'll be able to do all kinds of weird stuff with it, and that's what I'm most excited for. So what a fun weekend, gentlemen. I hope everyone who listened looks a little bit more closely into Omnisat. A lot of big things to come, a lot more problems to solve, but we're here for it and doing it a transparent way. So we'll see you guys next time.